Hey everyone, thanks for checking out this virtual worship gathering. This was the last one that was kind of delayed and backlogged from my paternity leave, so after watching this, you are now up to date with the gathering that we will be having, our in-person worship gathering this weekend. So this is the series is now current, and so now that I'm back from paternity leave, these will be coming out much closer to their regular schedule. So thank you for checking it out. We hope that we will see you this Saturday in person for continuing our New Church Who Dis series.
So we're going to continue on with our series. Steve did a great job avoiding the name of this series. It's New Church Who Dis. Okay. I walked away from a meeting to go to the bathroom for 5 minutes. And Leah and Jeff came up with like 3 series names. And I had no control. So, don't disappear when they're around. They will take over. And by the jokes that they both enjoy, it's that combination of things. But New Church Who Dis. It's we're exploring the values of Awaken, the aims of Awaken, who we kind of already are and kind of want to be. And so, real quick, I want to pull back the curtain on how we got to what we're talking about. So, about a year ago, Awaken was walking through some pretty significant leadership transition things. Also, I'm sure you all remember, we were in the middle of a global pandemic. And we hadn't yet got back together gathering yet. I think we gathered once at the end of October, or at the beginning of October, I can't remember which. And so when we were going through these leadership structure changes, that type of thing, we really looked at it as an opportunity to say, okay, where is Awaken actually, and who do we want to be now? And so co-leadership, that's Jeff, Steve, and myself. Well, I pointed at me and said Jeff. That's Jeff, Steve, and myself. Co-leadership got together. We came up with a few things, started passing around things, and then we got together with our spiritual leadership team, and we spent a good amount of meetings just talking about the things that we think make Awaken special, the things we do really, really well. And instead of trying to reinvent who we are, we looked at how the things we do really well line up with Christ's kingdom. And we decided to try and run at those as hard as we can. And so Steve kicked us off last week, and he was talking about radical hospitality, which I think is my first slide, putting that definition up there, is it's putting extraordinary emphasis and effort into making sure that someone feels fundamentally honored and genuinely welcomed. And Steve did a great job covering that, letting us know if you weren't able to hear it, definitely go back. Jeff wasn't here, and I forgot how to do the YouTube stuff, so it's not up yet, but it will be. And so we covered that. And so for this week, I'm going to pick up with the next value. And just to say, these are not in any given order. We don't rank these. We're not doing step 1, step 2. But just the next value on our list. But before we do that, we have our ever so important opening question. And today that's, what were your favorite and or most watched kids' TV shows? Got a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles over here. I was told that Jeff wasn't allowed to watch that because he would watch it and then he would beat his sisters up.
I watched too much to where they kind of put me on restriction.
Okay. What's up, Mike?
I got 3.
You got 3? Go for it.
The original commentary, the Flintstones, and also, what was the other one? Oh yeah, the Jetsons.
Jetsons,
I was
okay.
going to say Jetsons.
Those were my favorite.
My childhood?
No, that's my childhood.
Are you a time traveler?
I was watching all those shows when I was young too.
Really? Oh yeah, they played on reruns. Yeah. All right, what else we got?
Alex Mack on Nickelodeon. That's a good one. That's a good one. That's a deep cut. I got a Smurfs from behind me. I heard a Fraggle Rock. Okay. Tailspin. Yeah, those are back now, by the way. They're not for you anymore. Lost in Space. Okay. Throwing it back. You got another one?
Yeah, just to make myself not be as old.
Okay.
What?
Okay.
Another one of them would be the original Teen Titans.
Teen Titans. Okay, that's a good one. That's a good one.
I'm sorry, I was taking some notes. What was the question again?
Favorite and/or most watched kids TV show?
Does it have to be a kid's TV show, or is it one that I like to watch when I was a kid?
That too.
Because it's not a kid, it was Daniel Boone.
Okay. Oh, well, we're going to limit you to the handful you've given.
So from the engineer.
Okay.
What?
Phineas and Ferb.
Okay. Yeah, I don't care if you watch them as kids or you watch them as adults. Like if you had kids and you're like, we watch TV a bunch. Well, we watch YouTube a whole lot. So like their hit list is like Mark Rober and Dude Perfect and The Basement, which The Basement is a video game YouTube channel, by the way. We watch, they play through Zelda. All right. Blue's Clues, that's a good one. Anybody else?
Captain Kangaroo, that's right.
Captain Kangaroo?
Okay. Yes.
You know what that Jordan
I know that is.
Wow,
Yep.
Captain Kangaroo?
Yeah.
That's when we were kids.
Yeah.
Oh, it's still around?
It was still around. It was at the very end.
We saw the new episode.
Rugrats.
So am I.
And one more thing to have in mind,
But these are all
I said the original Lost in Space, also the original, the classic Batman.
The classic Batman? Okay. Bad puns and pals on the screen? Okay. For me, now I watched some of these. I watched some of the ones that Leah talked about, that type of thing. But our big hit list for me and my sisters was we could always tell by where the sun was in the sky what time Mr. Rogers was coming on. We loved it. That was the one. My mom didn't love having the three of us arguing in the house all the time, so we got kicked out a lot. But during like Sesame Street and Mr. Rogers, we would be allowed to sit around because we would sit quietly and watch. And so that comes to mind when we're talking about what we're talking tonight. Mr. Rogers' attitude towards others and the way he was just lovely to people and really excited to learn new things has carried with me. And so I want you to carry the idea of Mr. Rogers and what his presence was when we talk about this next value. And so this next value, our goal at Awaken is to be a church that is egalitarian. We're going to break that down in just a second, but I will say, along with the other stuff going on in my life, this message was a little bit difficult for me to work on, and I finished it this afternoon. I worked on it too long. But one of the main reasons why it was difficult to work on is because the word egalitarian has some rough recent history in church politics. So if you were to go on and do a Google search or do a YouTube search of like egalitarian and church, you would find big articles or YouTube videos about this controversy, mostly surrounding the role of women in leadership in church and women's place in the home. The battle between the egalitarian roles and the complementarian roles. And that's a really real conversation that is worth having, but that's not the conversation that we're having, and that's not the definition that we're looking at when we use this. That's not what we mean when we use the word egalitarian. And so we're going to unpack the actual definition of the word a little bit, or the actual place of the word. And it comes from political philosophy and has seen a huge uptick in its use in the last 60 years, primarily throughout this church battle. But it's seen it's in its life, it's most used over the past 60 years. But the actual definition is a belief in human equity, especially with respect to social, political, and economic affairs. And so that's a really rounded definition for what we're looking at it as a church. And so for us, when we look at it through the lens of being a missional church and how we view our faith, that definition comes to mean recognizing and valuing the image of God equally in all people. And so we're going to come to our first question. Or second question, actually. What does recognizing and valuing the image of God in all people mean or look like to you? What's up?
To kind of have somebody to look up to kind of be inspired by in a way.
Okay.
I think for me, in just a very practical way, it reminds me of the incredible value that every person has, regardless of gender, regardless of age, regardless of race, any of that stuff. Everyone has tremendous value and effort because of being a creation of God and carrying God's image. That means everyone needs to be loved, cared for, and respected as I encounter. That's okay.
Steve's got a leg up because he's on code leadership and he helped define these for us. But yeah, that's really good, Steve. Other thoughts?
It's really challenging. And if you take the time to really be introspective about it, because it's really easy for me to point out how other people like to put people in boxes and to like other them and not value them. It's a lot harder for me to look at myself and say, well, who are the people that I'm putting in boxes? And of course, ideally, you would not want to do that, but it's natural. All of us has biases, has preconceptions that we need to wrestle with and that we need to deconstruct, because the people that I may put into a box maybe look different than who somebody else puts in a box, but even those people I still need to recognize are created in the image of God, and that in and of itself is enough reason to honor, value, and respect them, even if elements of their ideology or even personality may be like abhorrent to me, that they still deserve honor and respect because they bear the image of God. So that's where it's challenging for me. It's really easy for me to espouse this for others, but then to take a step back and say, okay, who are the people that I need to remind myself of this?
Okay, I didn't read the question right the first time.
Okay.
Okay, for me, what it means to like see the image of God in all people, to recognize the image of God in all people, is basically to pretty much see the light of people, and to also try and help those whose light is kind of fading a little bit, and just kind of need somebody to give them that spark back.
Okay. That's really good.
I think it's really making a conscious effort to look at people the way that God would look at them, and not the way that we would look at them and judge them for whatever it is that's going on. Because a lot of times there's reasons there's always stuff we don't know about people. We don't know what's going on, and you really have to practice it and make a conscious effort to just talk to people like they're people. And
Yeah. That's really good. Y'all are shredding my notes to pieces. but that means that the last question is going to be extra fun for me, which is exciting.
I think of it too as I am talking, you can wait. At it. You need to be patient. Also a challenge to fight against my biases. And I think specifically to this girl in college, she was so stinking annoying that we all would just kind of she'd show up to Bible study and we're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe she's here. And it took one person looking at her like God did, and all of us kind of go, oh yeah, she is still God's child. God loves her too. Okay, let me and she ended up being president of our organization, which was amazing, and she's still an amazing person. But that was a learning thing in me, that I come with a bunch of biases, and if I set my biases aside for a minute and recognize that even the people who annoy me, or the people who make me mad, or the people who tick me off at work, and now I'm being challenged in my heart because there's some people that I'm really mad at, but they're still how can I see the image of God in them and still love them despite my frustration?
Yeah, solid. Way to go, y'all. Yeah, y'all are killing it. Like I said, you're shredding my notes. That's basically what I'm gonna keep saying is we have talked so much over the past few years about being the image bearers of God. In every biblical description of the creation of humanity, it's that phrase that's used, is that we were made in the image of God. And so it really is like carrying a family resemblance and recognizing a family resemblance. Colin, Leah and I hear all the time how Colin is basically a little blonde mini-me. And then to add to that, we have a picture, and I couldn't find it, but I'll have to look it up because it's real dumb. We have a picture of my dad and I playing cornhole, and we're about, I don't know, he's behind me 10 feet or something. We're both in the picture. We are standing the exact same way with the exact same look on our face. Entirely unplanned, and they made fun of me to no end for it. But so that's 3 generations of family resemblance that we carry. And so it's the same idea that we carry this family resemblance of being made in the image of God. But while we were created in that image, over time, 2 things happened. We started making decisions to try to look like something else. And then we also stopped seeing the family resemblance in others. And we made a choice to stop seeing the family resemblance in others. And so much of the New Testament is about reminding us, it revolves around those 2 things. It's look more like Jesus every day and love people, not because they always agree with you, not because they always make the right decisions, not because they can potentially make you wealthy. Love people because they bear the family resemblance. They were made in God's image. And so, as we grow to be more like Christ, because that's the goal, because we grow to be more like Christ, it has a profound impact on how we relate and treat others. There's not another choice. If you are growing more like Christ every day, you are treating people differently. Now, you can slip and you can have a bad day and treat people like crap on a day and still overall in your life be pursuing Christ and be growing more like Christ. But in that moment where you're treating somebody really bad, you don't look much like Christ. And so if you are pursuing, if you are going after Christ and growing to look more like Christ every day, you do not have a choice but to relate and treat others better. And so that reframes how we read some verses. In James chapter 3, verses 9 and 10, the writer's talking about taming your tongue and watching what you say. And then it comes up to 9, it says, sometimes it praises our Lord and Father, the tongue, sometimes the tongue, our tongues, praise our Lord and Father, and sometimes it curses those who have been made in the image of God. And so blessing and cursing come pouring out of the same mouth. Surely, my brothers and sisters, this is not right. Other translations, that last little phrase is, it can't be so. So, like, this is not right. That's correct. But yeah, my favorite emphasis is it can't be so. Like, you can't praise and curse out of the same mouth. It can't be so. Or then when we go and read passages like Philippians 2:3-8, it says, don't be selfish. Don't try to impress others. Be humble, thinking of others as better than yourselves. Don't look out for your own interest, only for your own interest, but take an interest in others too. You must have the same attitude that Christ Jesus had. Though he was God, he did not think equality with God as something to cling to. Instead, he gave up his divine privileges. He took the humble position of a slave and was born as a human being. When he appeared in human form, he humbled himself in obedience to God and died a criminal's death on a cross. And so, as we grow more like Christ, we read passages like that, and it challenges us. Sorry, I got distracted by my children. Anyway, and it challenges us in new ways, and those new ways, as we can see through the scriptures, we can see that part of recognizing and valuing the image of God in all equally is asking how we can affirm the dignity of each person. Like, what things can we do to reinforce that we hold them valuable, no matter where we stand with them, we hold them valuable because they bear the family resemblance. And so I think about that, and I'm brought back to Mr. Rogers. Right? He was controversial, but it wasn't because he was just like absolutely slaying people on Twitter. Right? He was controversial because he was seeing the areas that there were need, looking for the people who had voices to share in those areas, and elevating their position and saying, you have value. You are worth time. You are worth being heard. Your story, whether I disagree with it, whether I agree with it or not, your story and your experience is worthwhile and valid, and I am here to hear it and care for you. And so, like, we sat down and we talked about who we wanted to be and who we feel that we are to some extent already, and we're like, that's one thing that I can see in all the people. Let's run real hard at that. And so you've seen throughout the year, I mean, it's been hard because we've been in a pandemic, but we're seeking to hear different voices and hear different stories. And like, one of my favorite things that we do now is our story time with Steve. And it's partially because it's got a really fun name and Steve's really awesome at talking to people. But it's mostly because I get to hear stories of people that I have grown to care about. And that is important to us. But also, and this is where the fun question is, because y'all shredded my notes, because Awaken is not an organization, Awaken isn't worship gatherings, and Awaken isn't MC meetings. Awaken is a community of individuals that are trying to go the same way. The question falls to each of us individually. And so this one's a tough, practical question that I actually want to hear some solid answers to. So what will I do this week, this month, and this year to value the voices of others? What you got, Mike?
Maybe try and help my mom more with cleaning my room,
Okay.
since she always yells at me for about it.
I mean, listening to the people who provide and care for you and helping to meet their needs is absolutely a thing. Yep. I'm here for that. You can answer week, month, or year. Or all three if you got one. Sorry, I got the hiccup burps. I don't want to burp in my mic.
This may be a little different, but one of the things that I try to incorporate this almost on a daily basis, because I get to meet a lot of new people every day, and when I'm doing home inspections, that kind of stuff for them. So every time I meet somebody, I try to let them know just by my attitude, by the way I present myself, how I talk to them, that they're important, they matter, and I stress to them, I say, I'm here to serve you. I'm here to help you in this whole process. And I tell them again, I'm here to serve you. And you can just see when the people here, as you're talking to them, I do this little spiel at the beginning before I get to the inspection, that just the anxiety comes down and the comfortability level comes up. And there's this process. So what I'm trying to tell them is that I care about you, you matter, I want your voice to be heard, and it doesn't matter how different we are, I'm here to serve you. And that just seems to break down barriers.
Yeah, well, especially in your business, in your work, because like buying a house is a very stressful, very my life savings is gone kind of thing, and you really don't want to screw it up. And so I know from our experience, you go in with this attitude of, I don't want to get fleeced by people, and knowing that somebody is coming to you on your side, that's a big deal.
It's something I've already kind of been doing, but making more of a conscious effort, especially with so much controversy that is going on right now, to really look at other person's perspective that I don't agree with. Because you can't really debate, whether you're going to debate or not, you can't really debate anything unless you know both sides of the thing anyways. And you see a whole lot with the internet, which is disgusting. But, people don't do any research, they don't look at anything from somebody else's perspective, for the most part. The loudest people on the internet seem to not do that. So I try to consciously make an effort. People are having a bad day, having the pandemic has done that, hugely, that are having a rough time. This whole thing, I read something today, Miley Cyrus performed on stage for the first time, and she literally had a panic attack. That's what she's done her entire life. And during the pandemic, she's been so close up, like the rest of us, quarantined away from people. She had a panic attack doing what she's always done, and like taking that into consideration, and just listening more, and trying to see things, even when people are angry, because most of us grow up learning, a lot of people grow up, and the anger is just hiding some other emotion. So you don't realize that as you get older and trying to figure out what that other emotion is and then react to that instead of the anger.
Right. Yeah.
Mine is fairly similar to Mandy's, and something I've been trying to do better at since when we did our politically correct series, our level of fear series, so that would have been summer and fall of last year, of trying to ask more questions, particularly when there's somebody who has a viewpoint that's different than you, even a viewpoint that, I think I used the word abhorrent earlier, or one that is like that I would say, your viewpoint isn't just counter to mine, it's harmful to people, right? Even in those situations, to try to ask more questions. There's all kinds of data out there that shows that you won't change people's minds by arguing, you won't change people's minds by presenting facts or, hey, look at this article. And so, but I think it's really beautiful when you can take somebody who is on the other side of an issue than you, or maybe has, again, just a very counter worldview to you, and ask questions that start to like peel back the layers until you can find a point of commonality. So like, okay, well, we both believe this, and then here's where we split off from that common viewpoint. But a lot of times, if you can start from a shared point of commonality, rather than focusing on the differences, there's a chance for, not just that you might win someone over to your side of an argument, that could possibly happen, but also just to do what we're talking about. Maybe their viewpoint doesn't change, but maybe I can see the image of God in them in spite of how whatever about them, makes me prickle, and so just asking more questions, rather than, try and get the mic drop movement on somebody by making it look foolish. And so that's something, it comes and goes. Sometimes I'm better at it than others, but it's certainly something I've been trying to grow and increase in.
Well, I would say to that last point, all of this is work, y'all. We're not going to, repetition is great with this stuff, but fixing habits and fixing nature, that's the miraculous stuff that the Bible talks about. It's not the common stuff that we're tied into. We strive, we work out our faith to look more like Christ every day. We don't fall into it. For me, this looks like probably my resolution for the year. A lot of this has to do with both work and I've been coaching Colin's fall ball little league team, and I don't super get along with a lot of the baseball parents. Like, a lot of them are super highly competitive. I'm very self-competitive, but I normally leave the interplay between other people off to other people. And so I don't super get along with them, but by coaching and coming to my parents regularly, coming to see the parents of the baseball team regularly and being like, hey, reminders, we're worried about the kids first. Both teams are learning how to play baseball. We're gonna lose games. That's how we're gonna do it. And then give them a chance to talk to me and challenge me on some of my decisions. Allow them to speak in areas where I could shut down and be like, hey, I'm in charge of this. You're gonna leave me alone. And I mean, there may come a time for that. There may come a time when I have to do that if something's carried on too long. But if that is my disposition of starting out and being like, no, I'm doing this, I'm doing it my way, you can't talk to me about it, I will miss out on people. Yes?
For me, I know that most of my life is working. I work every day at school, so for me, my biggest thing is to drive over I'm always, I shouldn't say always, but most of the time I'm praying, Lord, just shine through me today somehow. Because I know in and of myself I'm not capable. So I just feel like not only does he, but it also helps me to stay mindful of the fact that I need him. I need him every second of every day in order to make wise decisions, in order to love people the way that I should love people, in order to impact those around me. And I think that it's just been so cool to watch him work in that atmosphere. It's amazing what the last couple of years have brought to Bayside Kitchen. So I guess I don't have the confidence or whatever in and of myself. It's just I just know that he has to be present or it's not going to. Yeah. So that's for me.
Well, and I grew up, I went to Bayside. I grew up, I graduated from Bayside, and this Bayside, school you work at and I work over at Lansdowne, the school that I work at, they're very similar. And I can tell, like, I work security. There are a lot of kids there that have missed out on a lot of things and are scared to get back into routine. And it's masking in a lot of different ways. And they're begging through behaviors for somebody to listen to them. And so,
Well, I was hoping Lori would jump in and say something. I almost was going to say something directly to her, because when you talk about this idea about asking questions and stuff before, for the last couple of years, that's really been a priority for Lori as she's learning to work with these people. Just asking the questions and how that's caused so many barriers to break down and so much understanding to take place and that kind of thing. So, I'm just very encouraged by what she has learned and how she's brought other people she works with along that process, how God's worked through her the whole thing. So it's pretty cool to see.
Yeah.
And it all fits in with this egalitarian. I think I said it right.
Yep. Spot on. All right. Great answers, y'all. We're gonna wrap up that portion. We're gonna celebrate together some. So we're gonna move from that message part. We're gonna move into a time where we share communion together. Hi.